Now, when clothing was not as disposable as it is today, clothing used to be patched. And I'm not so young that I can't remember the majority of my blue jeans had patches where? On the knees, right? And I had some really cool patches, superhero patches that Mom sewed on the knees of my jeans, and it was, well, it wasn't cool, but you know, you do what you do. Today we throw clothing away, but used to we preserved it, and that's certainly the case here. I can remember buying Levi's 501 button-up jeans that were not pre-shrunk, which went from the largest pants you've ever seen to the size of pants for a doll. Some of you remember that. And then I remember going into Bill's, is that what it was? Bill's, and seeing that they'd come out with 501 pre-shrunk, which means they would only shrink half as much as they did when I used to try to fit into those when I was a chubby little kid. And so we see this example that Jesus is giving here is that an older garment, those jeans that have been washed over and over and over again, well, they're shrunk. So don't take a new piece of cloth, put it on the old, because the new cloth is not pre-shrunk. The cloth will shrink and eventually it will fail as a patch. Jesus similarly uses the metaphor of wine, that we are not to put new wine into old wine skins. Think about it this way. When grapes are crushed, I am told by people much smarter than I, that on the outside of grape skins there is a naturally occurring yeast. And when those are crushed, the grapes release a juice that is just full of sugar. And when the outside of the skins, the yeast, mixes with the sugar of the grapes, what happens immediately, I am told, is fermentation. And as the new wine ferments, it expands in size. And so new skins are needed. In those days, they stored their wine in wine skins, animal skins. And so the new skins, they were supple. They were pliable. And so as the fermentation occurred, the skins would expand with them. But if you took that new wine in its fermentation and put it in old wine skins that are older and they're harder and they're rigid and they crack, then they would essentially explode, losing all of the precious wine. And so like unshrunk cloth, like old wineskins, the Old Testament practices of piety were not sufficient for the new wine of Christ's first advent. John's disciples were asking a question with their eyes focused on the Old Covenant and the practices of the Old Covenant. And Jesus is teaching that He, the Christ of the covenants, had come. In the fullness of time, He came, and His disciples feasted in His presence. On the last day, He will return, and we will feast with Him again. But until that day, we fast. Not as one who knows not the Christ, but as one who does know the Christ, and we long for His return.